told us what's coming. Nobody's noticed. It's gonna blow your mind. Oh, I'm so fat. First, let's focus on the line that got in my head and started making me think about this, because in the third act, Gabriel tells Paris, "You will
betray us
and tell
Ethan Hunt everything you've learned
because
he spared your life."
And then he knifes her in the chest, just like he did with Ilsa. But she survives long enough to do exactly what he predicted. But let's rewind. What he said was, "You will betray us because he saved your life." Now, could that be a prediction? Sounds like it. But could it be a suggestion? Could it be an instruction disguised as a prediction? I theorize that the ultimate goal is to get Tom Cruise or Ethan Hunt to go and get the sonar sphere out of the submarine. They need that to achieve their goals. That's where this all started, and my gosh, where I ended up could be one of the most satisfying and exciting ideas possible, or one of the most disappointing, but we'll get there. Quick, I don't know how much time I've got. If you're receiving this message, that means you are the final hope to complete this mission. This mission I've been on for months, but which at every turn Paramount has been thwarting me, because I've got the biggest secret to Dead Reckoning Part 2, but those bastards have corrupted the files, so I'm gonna need Phineas Freak's help to recover the data. So together, we can do this. Like Tom Cruise in Fallout, we can suck it up and get it done. So, no, they found me already. They keep finding me. You keep going and I'll keep going. You're too late. It's already started. It can't be squashed. Oh, fuck. Off the cuff, I have seen Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 3 times, and I know exactly what the biggest reveals in Part 2 are going to be. This is my film theory, and oh, God, it's good. This will answer questions like, why was Ilsa roped in? Why was Ethan? Both just stand to get in an evil AI's way, so why would the entity want them here? Clap, clap.
There's a reason he wants me here. There's a reason he wants you here. It wants you here.
I don't know what's going on, because I have not had a lot of energy drinks. I've had a couple coffees, and I feel like I've got that Tom Cruise intensity going on. But I digress. Now let's back up almost all the way to the beginning, when we have all the top leaders in the intelligence agency talking about this threat of the entity, this AI that's come alive and it's going to threaten the entire world. They tell us that this AI has gone into every single world government, every single digital place that they could, and left easily findable footprints everywhere to make the world know that it exists. But let's stress test its intentions. Why, if it wants to stay safe, if it doesn't want to draw attention to the fact that it is a threat before it moves, if it doesn't want to give humans the time they might need to be able to destroy its source code, why would it make its presence known? Why would it give us a fair warning? Why not just boom? I am the captain now. And now we can interrogate that even further. Its first job was to sink the submarine and all that good stuff. That good stuff. Pair that with the fact that Gabriel knew about the submarine, knew about the crew, and knew about the key. We can see.
Can you see? Can't you see it?
They never needed to chase after the key, because if the entity was a powerful enough AI to leave a message in each of the government's most secure servers, it easily could have funded a team to go and nuke the submarine. Keys be damned. So why the game of mice and cheese? Because the entity's giving cheese to everybody. Ethan, you get some cheese. Ilsa, you get some cheese. Everybody get some cheese. And like every game of mice and cheese, there's a mousetrap. One big enough to crush everyone. But we'll get there. We're told the entity has continued operating while its source code has just been chilling in the Sevastopol sonar sphere, so clearly the entity can operate separate of its source code. And that's even before asking, why do we think the source code can delete the entity or be used as a threat enough to make the entity comply? That comes from the briefing scene when Kittredge says,
"The Russians seem to believe that it somehow has the power to deactivate our mysterious entity."
Russia knows that the two halves of the cruciform key are tied to the Sevastopol. It was their sub after all. But how does the Kremlin know that the entity was connected to the Sevastopol sinking? They've clearly not recovered the sub to find that out based on the clip we have of Ethan diving to it in the trailer. Now the questions are really starting to pile up. It makes no sense why they'd come to this conclusion on their own. So who's telling the Kremlin all this? Let's assume the entity, which makes sense in two. The entity is restricted, kind of like Peter's suit in Homecoming. It's got something like the 3 laws of robotics, and it needs Gabriel to switch the rules off so it can run free. Being able to control the entity was never an option. The entity just wants everyone to think it can be controlled, so their greed keeps their eyes off the delete button. That's a good way to up the tension in part 2 and also answer the question, why was the entity only being a drama king? Part 1. It also answers the question, why not go, I am the captain now? But that's not it. We're still left with, why warn anyone else? If the entity wants to be unlocked, there's no upside to revealing its presence to the world. Bad news, scenario 1 ain't it, and we haven't actually answered the I am the captain now question. Good news, this whole video is scenario 2, but we'll get there. With the help of the like button. Decades of watching blockbusters has taught us that exposition equals truth. So when we're exposition certain things, we believe it. But we're forgetting that our director and co-writer is Christopher McQuarrie, who won an Oscar for writing The Usual Suspects. That film answered the question, who is Kaiser Soze? But we're gonna answer the question, what or who is the entity? Because it's not a computer program. Proven here. In the debriefing, we're told
It concentrated primarily on using social media, which was of little concern to us, as it often suited our purposes.
The entity breached Saudi Arabia's General Intelligence Directorate
and assimilated their top secret active learning AI.
and we're led to believe that the villain is a sentient AI. But then later in the film, that's explicitly contradicted when Denlinger says,
The AI are agents, though.
meaning there was no entity before the AI from Saudi Arabia went rogue. All the news and social media stuff was Denlinger and his agents. That's why.
It often suited our purposes.
This proves that at least part of the entity's story is wrong. Misinformation. A best guess made by people without the full picture.
The entity as it is now in the movie did not exist when the movie started. We knew that information technology was the threat. We did not think of it as the villain per se.
But maybe, after Denlinger's agents stole Saudi Arabia's active learning AI and sent it to sabotage the Sevastopol, it still evolved and went rogue. But it doesn't look like it. And we get the most clues to that during the party with the White Widow. The party that's supposedly hosted by the entity. A power that can make
Thousands of quadrillions of computations per millisecond.
but one that doesn't know Grace's real name, or that she's got one half of the cruciform key in her pocket, or that Ilsa would be showing up at the party because Grace has a real passport, which means there's a digital record of her real identity, and the all-powerful AI easily could have found it and told Gabriel, but it didn't? The ridiculousness of the entity not knowing that Grace had her half of the cruciform key on her when it can make
Thousands of quadrillions of computations per millisecond.
and she's taking it out and passing it around is self-explanatory, but it not knowing that Ilsa was going to show up, that's wild. Because when she shows up, look at what Gabriel does. It's literally the subtlest double take in the history of cinema, but it's there. And he doesn't double take when Ethan arrives because he knows Ethan's alive. None of this should come as a surprise though, because the film literally tells us not to believe him.
Why should I believe you?
You shouldn't. You've stepped into a world of lies, Grace.
And if I haven't convinced you yet, think about it. What's more likely, that this all-powerful entity messes up at the little things, or that the entity isn't real? Gabriel used the name Grace because that's the name he could find. He didn't know that she'd have the key there because how could he? And he didn't expect Ilsa to show up because he believed the lie that she was dead. His claim that he'd get the key as long as one of them died, made up on the spot. A farce, because why would an AI want or need to kill somebody that Ethan Hunt, specifically Ethan Hunt, cared about? It wouldn't. It's not practical.
But it is personal!
And here's the real truth of the choice. It's a ruse. It was never her or her, it was anyone. See, that's why Ilsa got roped in. If Ilsa gets roped in, Ethan gets roped in. And if one of his friends dies, then he's really in.
If anything happens to either of them, there is no place on Earth where you or your God will be safe from me. There's no place that I won't go to kill you. That is written.
It's good to
to see you, old friend.
So, pardon the pun, killed two birds with one stone by roping in Ilsa and then killing her. But twist! Ethan helped delay that fate. Now what's Gabriel to do? He still needs to kill one of Ethan's friends, doesn't matter who, while looking all powerful with the entity backing him. He'd prefer Ilsa, but we'll get there. The truth is, any cold body will do. He looks around and he only sees two of Ethan's friends.
Her. Or her.
It's like when Lane said,
From the moment I killed the young lady in the record shop, I knew you would
Stop at nothing to catch me. I also knew Ilsa wouldn't have a choice. Whether she broke you that night you met, or let you go. Whether you let her run in Morocco, whether she went to Argylle or not.
You were certain we'd end up where we are. Right now.
Holy shit! I thought this was fake for the video! Oh my god, wait. Oh my gosh, do I have to teach these amateurs how to kidnap? Don't read into that. But they threw me in the trunk with all my gear. Wait, did they take it? No. Alright, you're at the finish line. Keep going, and I'm honestly just gonna cry that Mad Pat's leaving theorizing in his rear view. Oh, congratulations on the well-earned retirement. Fuck. Luther tells us the entity was erasing Gabriel in real time, which sounds like the work of a super AI, but seems awful similar to Luther's deepfake trick. Arguably worse since it looked a lot jankier. And to add on to that, erasing someone from a scene in a movie has been possible at least since 2012's The Avengers. It happened in this film.
The sequence when Benji pulls up after the bridge fight, it was such a quick stop, and I just wasn't skilled enough to do that. So Wade, our stunt coordinator, drove the boat, and I stood on the other side, and then in post we flipped it so that I was driving and they painted Wade out.
Whereas deepfaking is far more difficult. Look at Dial of Destiny as the latest example.
No one is safe from Phineas Freak.
So if Luther can do deepfake tech in real time, a super AI should be able to do a disappearing act for Gabriel like it's nothing. Same for...
Turn right. Sorry, my mistake. I meant left. Another left.
Oh my god.
Ethan, our comms have been breached. You're talking to the entity.
Real-time voice-changing tech is perfectly possible today. And premeditated, since that was the whole purpose of the fake bomb threat in the first place. The cherry on top is it all helps having this illusion of the entity to divide and conquer the literal world.
How to turn our allies into enemies, and our enemies into aggressors.
As well as a far more personal divide and conquer. But we'll get there. Now we can switch gears to... Okay, sorry.
This car, the way they...
how they build these. I'm
the way they set
still
them up
getting used to it.
sometimes
It's
it's
just...
Let's go.
Okay, give me a second. Okay, but now let's switch gears and talk about Gabriel and the key. Even though we're still leading to my ultimate theory, this is the part that was solidified by Mr. Sunday Movie, so thank you for that. They were talking about how this key looks like a Catholic cross, and Gabriel, the Archangel Gabriel.
He's a dark messiah, the entity's chosen messenger.
This is his mission from God, essentially. This disembodied voice that is supposedly better and more knowledgeable and more powerful than any human being on planet Earth. He is Gabriel. He is the Archangel carrying out this holy mission of his to change the world. But do you know who, according to the Bible, is responsible for building the first church in Jerusalem? Solomon. Oh yeah. You know what I'm about to say. I believe that the true villain of this film is Solomon Lane. That's why we get the bomb saying you are done.
Or strapping me into an explosive vest.
Consider it unfinished business, my funny little friend.
Behind all of this is Solomon Lane continuing his mission. His mission that was not planned. He's come back and he's leveled up his game even more. Instead of just coming out and letting Ethan know what's on the table, he found out about this weapon. He found out about it and he's been playing the long game. So now we can see what it's really all about, starting with the first scene. 6 months ago, Russia achieved their goal of creating a super weapon that would give them de facto control of the ocean. The US, through Denlinger, sends an AI to do light sabotage, it over-delivers, and sinks the Sevastopol. The crew appear in the pack ice, and the halves of the key mysteriously go missing. Every country goes on an arm race, trying to become the new ruler of the world. Denlinger covers up his sabotage, killing his agents who knew what he'd done. Now, let's fill in the gaps. 6 months ago, Russia achieved their goal of creating a superweapon that would give them de facto control of the 7 seas. The US sends an AI to do light sabotage. But remember, after Fallout, Lane's apostles didn't just disappear. The apostles weren't all of a sudden defeated like aliens or robots. They still exist in every level of government. So apostles and Denlinger's team, at Lane's discretion and direction, that's what I wrote, sabotage the sabotage and tell the AI to over-deliver and sink the Sevastopol. But why? We're almost there. The crew appear in the pack ice, and the apostles make the 2 halves of the cruciform key mysteriously go missing. They ramp up activity online to give the impression of sentience, feed misinformation about controlling the entity to the Kremlin, rope Ilsa in, rope Ethan in, and give him extra incentive as well as a breadcrumb trail of clues to bring Cruz. I'm keeping it. Cruz! It doesn't matter if you're spelling it this way or this way. Anyway, give him a breadcrumb trail of clues to bring him and anyone else to the Sevastopol, where Ethan and the world's government will find out that the US sunk a Russian submarine. And boom. Cue World War III. The world will suffer the nuclear fallout, and Solomon Lane will use the Sevastopol's tech to stay safe and continue pulling the world's strings from the shadows, achieving his goal in Rogue Nation. That's why the Sevastopol needed to sink. That's the real key. And speaking of the key, did you notice the Fallout hint on the key? It's the only piece of information we have on it, and it's on the briefing screen in teeny little letters. And look at that! It was conveniently cropped out of the frame when Ethan was getting his mission. Ultra compressed nuclear waste.
Nothing anyone says is true. Just remember that.
Even the music is on the same wavelength.
Composer Lauren Balfe in this movie does a really cool effect with the music every time the entity appears, inverting the normal score. Now, the normal score in this movie is, of course, based on Lalo Schifrin's iconic classic theme. The entity music inverts that, going from down to up, and doing so in a creepy minor key.
By inverting the score, the music is literally telling us that the person or entity it's connected to is the opposite of the original, or in other words,
A rogue nation, trained to do what we do. An anti-IMF.
And where Sherlock has his Moriarty, you already know who Ethan's is.
The guy that has beaten you at every turn.
And beyond the thematics, that's why Solomon chose Gabriel to divide and conquer Ethan's team. But thankfully for us, Ethan's team doesn't always let Ethan decide what's best.
So I am staying. And that is all we are going to say about that.
Okay.
Another thing to consider is that it's not uncommon for an action movie to take the overarching plot of the movie and condense it down for the opening sequence as a way to kind of foreshadow what's to come. And then we look at the opening sequence and we see in the Sevastopol everything I've been talking about. It's a whole sequence of them being told one story and then twist. It turns out to be a whole other one, and the people who are being told, that crew, they pay the ultimate price. I think that's what part 1 is. We're just there right before the submarine disappears, and we're gonna pay the price. Perfect time to say I actually do believe there will be one bomb that hits. Oh, it's gonna be insane when it does. This whole movie's premise was a lie. Solomon Lane, like in Fallout, wants Ethan there to suffer.
He still has plans for you. You're gonna turn yourself in, then watch the old world implode from your dark little cell.
To see the world burn.
Bad boy.
In this play of illusions, all made for Ethan Hunt, he has cast himself as Gabriel the Archangel, Gabriel the angel that is on the holy mission. And once he burns down that old world order, he will assume his position as God. He no longer wants to die like he did in Fallout. He wants to rule the world and show them the the future they need to be out, and the future he believes in. And that is why at the end of Dead Reckoning Part 2, Ethan's going to...
So be it. I was hoping it'd be you.
And we're gonna get a payoff to that line in Fallout.
Consider it unfinished business, my funny little friend.
You are done.
First, the bomb asked Benji some personal questions that the test audience found disturbing.
Really? Go on.
Yeah, because McQuarrie had this idea that Benji was suffering a little bit from PTSD because of what happened in Fallout, and the sort of psychological profiling that the bomb was doing on Benji really upset the audience, so we changed it.
Wow.
There was a question, I won't go into it, because I think it will make people upset, but...
oh my god, we have to know.
It was a standard psychological question. You ask them, have you thought about harming yourself or others? And that's when Benji says no, and the bomb says you're lying. So Benji has to admit to yes.
Wow, that is intense.
One of the first things that Christopher McQuarrie said after it was announced that Dead Reckoning was going to be a two-parter is that he really wanted his next mission to have enough space to allow every team member to have their own character arc, which in a normal mission going a mile a minute is really hard to do outside of Ethan. So, 2 parts. Elegant solution. And I think that means that this tease from the bomb sequence that was cut out about Benji's PTSD is so much more than just some random question thrown in for shits and giggles. Clearly, this is tied to his time in
Fallout.
How did McQuarrie pitch Benji's arc for this movie, and did it actually remain in the final version?
Benji's arc was very much about the fallout from Fallout, really. It was about what he'd been through, how that had affected him as a person. You know.
And I think that means that bringing Solomon Lane back in Part 2 is going to allow Benji to resolve those emotions, find closure in that post-traumatic stress. So while I don't think this means that Benji is going to kill Solomon Lane, I do think it means that either he's going to be instrumental in helping Ethan to bring Solomon Lane down, or even more extreme, he might sacrifice himself to do it. So there's so many more possibilities for this story, and I'm so excited for Benji in Part 2, especially after Simon Pegg said this on Light the Fuse.
Part 2, I will get to do some cool stuff.
Every single time in Dead Reckoning Part 1, when they talk about the entity, almost exactly like they talked about Solomon Lane.
Ethan, what if it wants us to leave?
Like you made us leave the airport.
And what if it wants you alone at that party tonight?
No, I know Lane, and he has no intention of going back.
That's why we're taking him back.
Which means that's exactly what he wants us to do.
That's why we have to warn the British.
Maybe that's exactly what he wants us to do.
That was not an accident. That was not you were repeating the notes of the previous films. That was a hint. That was a billboard. That was a multiverse of madness billboard telling you what the plot is going to be, what the reveals are going to be in 2. And I truly believe that Solomon Lane, I don't know if he'll be Gabriel for sure, mask reveal and all, but Solomon Lane will kill Benji. And Solomon Lane will physically fight Ethan.
Face to authentic face.
Which you might be surprised he has not done in the last 2 films, but he is a physical threat. Ethan's going to kill Lane. By the way, I think that sorrowful look on Gabriel's face, I think this justifies that a little bit.
That was Ilsa. Very interesting.
And at the end of the day, it won't be some piece of anger, some uncontrolled rage. Ethan's gonna beat him, take him into custody, essentially, and then we see a room with Solomon Lane in it, bound to a chair. The door closes, and then the door opens. And Ethan leaves, and we see that Solomon Lane has been solved for. And it's just as likely that Ethan will sacrifice himself to take down Lane, avoiding World War III much like Sherlock did in the Game of Shadows. Sans the tease for another installment. I got the last drive in this backpack, and it's uploading to Phineas Freak. It's about to be everywhere. What the
This is the end, Mr. Movies.
It's dope.
Huh, says you.
Wait, where's Luther?
Don't worry, your video's still going live. You, on the other hand.
Eddie Burback?
That's right. It was never Paramount getting in your way. It was us.
Why?
You copied my Morbius video. You copied it.
You're too smart to think that I was copying. Wait, us?
Or whatever.
Because I copied Review-a-thon?
It's in review.
Oh yeah, my bad.
We've created the League of Evil Chicagoland originating YouTubers with facial hair.
Wow, the League of Evil X's is way less of a mouthful.
Too bad. You named it.
We're gonna break open your balls and eat your bones like lettuce. And there's nothing you can do about it, Mr. Movies.
If I didn't obsess about these movies so much, that might be true.
What is that? I can't see it.
It's a like bomb.
I have a pitch for the third road trip. Others have noted that this film seems to be pulling the greatest hits from previous franchise installments and doing the best versions of those sequences.
Every action set piece in Dead Reckoning to me felt like almost an attempt to outdo the previous iteration of a similar set piece, right? The train scene was going to outdo previous train scene, right? Driving around in a little car around a European city was going to outdo the previous, like all that stuff. I just felt like there was this very joyful attempt to just outdo all previous iterations of a given type of set piece.
And that, I believe, is because they want to put a giant bow on this magnificent franchise and let it go out with a bang, with the greatest hits, upping themselves of what they've done. The water sequence in Rogue Nation, not good enough. We're going to dive to a fucking submarine. Yeehaw! I truly believe that Benji is done, pun almost unintended, and Ethan is going to consider the greater good. And this will be the trilogy for Solomon Lane. In so many interviews before these movies were announced, every single person, podcast, they'd be like, all right, so are you going to do the trilogy? The editor, I think Eddie Hamilton, the editing was even more magic in this film, but Eddie Hamilton, I think, or someone else kept saying like, so you're going to do your Solomon Lane trilogy? Come on. And Christopher McQuarrie kept saying, I can't even think about another film right now. Fast forward to like a month later and he's like, okay, 2. This is not only a great way to have character arcs for all the characters over 2 films, but it's a beautiful little sneaky way to sneak in a Solomon Lane trilogy without anyone expecting it. That's my prediction, and I really hope it turns out better than my Ted Lasso prediction. But if you want to see how wrong I was, you can check that out right here after hitting the like button, please. Ooh, that was smooth. And the Snyder cut of this video has even more to the intro, more to the kidnapping plot, and more to the predictions. We even have a stretch goal to buy the country of Ireland, and you better believe all of that is free to you right now. Seriously, the link's there. Join. Free. Fuck. Bye. But that's just a film theory. A film. Fuck.